آهای خبردار مستی آشیار خوابی یا بیدار خوابی یا بیدار تو شب سیاه تو شب تاریک از چپ و از راست از دور و نزدیک یه نفر داره جار میزنه جار آهای غمی که مثل یه بختک رو سینه من شده ای آوار از گلوی من دستاتو بردار دستاتو بردار
و پر از اتفاقاتی که خاطراتش برای عزیزان باقی مونده و ثواب حاج علی سائی. مراسمی که امروز قراره برگزار بکنیم با حضور مهربان همه شما عزیزان، با توجه به اینکه مهمانهای غیر فارسی زبان هم داریم، باید خب هم به زبان فارسی باشه هم به زبان انگلیسی و من فکر میکنم بزرگداشت یک مردی که از سخاوت و مهربانیش همه شما عزیزان آگاهید و مهربانیهاش برای بچه های عزیزش انقدر در دلشون عمیق جا گرفته و مصداق بارز اون شعر حافظ هست که مرگ برای کسانی که عاشق میشن معنی نداره، هرگز نمیرد آن که دلش زنده شد به عشق، ثبت است بر جریده عالم دوام ما. واقعا بعضی ها انقدر عاشقانه زندگی میکنن که مرگ از حضورشون چیزی کم نمیکنه. بعضی ها به قول یک بزرگی زندگی رو صرف امور دنیا میکنن، خونه میخرن، میفروشن، باغ میخرن و بسیار کارهای از این قبیل. و بعضی ها خیلی باهوشترن و حاج علی آقا از اون جمله باهوشترها بود. باهوشترها کسانی هستند که خانه های دلها رو میخرند، خانه های دلها رو آباد میکنند و در بهشتی که خودشون در دلهای عزیزانشون سبز و خرم میکنند هم در حیاتشون زندگی میکنند و هم بعد از مرگ حیاتشون در قلب عزیزانی که قلبهاشون رو با عشق و محبت سرسبز کردن ادامه میدن. حاج علی آقا از اون جمله آدم‌هایی بود که اعتقاداتش با عملش همخونی داشت، از جنس آدم‌هایی که باور قلبیش و ایمانش هیچ وقت در تعارض با رفتارهاش نبود. همونقدر که به مهربانی و به عشق و به بخشندگی باور داشت، در عمل هم از جنس انسان‌های بخشنده و مهربان. و فکر نمی کنم در این دنیا بالاتر از این عنوان چیزی داشته باشیم که وقتی از کسی یاد میشه فقط مهربانی و بخشندگیش عنوان بشه. با فرزندانشون که صحبت میکردم، فرزندان عزیزی که هر کدومشون خودشون مهربانی پدر رو ادامه میدن و میگه چون که گل رفت و گلستان شد خراب، بوی گل را از که جوییم از گلاب. فرزندانشون هم راه مهربانی و بخشندگی رو از پدر یاد گرفتن و ادامه میدن و احتمالاً همه شما عزیزانی که اینجا هستید با این فامیل محترم و عزیز و دوست داشتنی آشنا هستید. ما در اینجایی که زندگی میکنیم باورها و عقاید مختلفی داریم که هر کدومش به نوع خودش محترم و ارزشمند هست. باورهایی که ممکنه ما رو به راه سعادت راهنمایی کنه. من فکر میکنم هر باوری با هر نامی اگر به قول حافظ درگیر نامها نشیم، میگه جنگ 72 ملت همه را عذر بنه چون ندیدند حقیقت و افسانه زدن، نامها رو کنار بذاریم. هر مرامی، هر اندیشه‌ای، هر دین و آیینی، هر روشی از زندگی که ما رو به قله مهربانی برسونه شریف و محترمه. و قبل از این که وارد هر دینی بشیم همه ما به عشق و مهربانی باور داریم. و حاج علی آقا از اون جمله آدم‌هایی بود که قله‌های مهربانی رو فتح کرد. حافظ یک دین بسیار صادق و مختصری داره. شاید دین حافظ دینیه که میتونه زندگی علی آقا رو شرح بده. دین حافظ بسیار ساده است، خیلی سخت نیست، خیلی قانون زیادی نداره، مختصر و مفیده. در 2 بیت خلاصه میشه و حتی در 2 کلمه: مرنج و مرنجان. آدم‌های بزرگ نه تنها باعث اذیت و آزار کسی نمیشن، از کسی هم خورده‌ای به دل نمیگیرن. در دین حافظ یک گناه بیشتر وجود نداره و اون گناه رنجوندن دیگران. میگه مباش در پی آزار و هر چه خواهی کن که در شریعت ما غیر از این گناهی نیست. یک گناه بیشتر در دین حافظ وجود نداره و اون که کسی رو نرنجونه. فردوسی بزرگ هم خیلی خلاصه همه اخلاق رو در بیتی شبیه به همین برای ما عنوان کرده: به نیکی گرای و میازار کس، ره رستگاری همین است و بس. خیلی خلاصه و خیلی مختصر. و دین حافظ یک مکملی داره. در دین حافظ یک کفر وجود داره. کفر یعنی پوشوندن حقیقت. در ادبیات بعضی وقتها به کشاورزها هم کافر میگن، برای اینکه دونه ها رو در دل خاک پنهان میکنن. حافظ میگه که منم که شهره شهرم به عشق ورزیدن، منم که شهره شهرم به عشق ورزیدن، منم که دیده نیالودم به بد دیدن. وفا کنیم و ملامت کشیم و خوش باشیم که در طریقت ما کافریست رنجیدن. در مرام بزرگان رنجشی که بخواد وارد قلب بشه مثل کفر میمونه. یعنی باید یه حقیقتی پوشونده بشه. چه حقیقتی؟ حقیقت عشقی که در قلب جاشه. قلب انسان جایگاه عشقه. اگر قرار باشه دلخوری و کینه واردش بشه باید روی اون عشقها پوشونده بشه و این کفر و خروج از دینی که حافظ بهش باور داره. چقدر بزرگمردند آدم‌هایی که تلخی می‌بینند ولی رنجشی به دل نمی‌گیرند. دریا صفتند. دیدین بعضیا مثل دریا میمونن. یه صخره‌ام که واردشون بشه آب از آب انگار تکون نمیخوره. دریا آرامش خودش رو داره. بعضیا مثل یه نلبکی، یه قندم که توشون بیفته کلی اتفاق میفته و موج برمیداره. دریا صفت بودن صفت آدم‌های بزرگه، آدم‌هایی که حقیقت معنا در قلبشون وارد شد. آدم‌هایی که اون چیزهایی که در باورشونه خرد متعالی از اونها ساخته، که یک فرهنگ ایرانی رو میشه در وجودشون دید. ما 3000 سال فرهنگی داریم که از یک خرد و از یک اندیشه نیک صحبت میکنه، اندیشه‌ای که انقدر اوج گرفته، انقدر بالا رفته که خوبی رو و بدی رو به خوبی تشخیص میده و همه ما میتونیم تشخیص بدیم. کار سختی نیست، همه ما ته دلمون خوبی ها و بدی ها رو میبینیم، ولی اون خردی که متعالی میشه میفهمه که این خوبی و بدی ها رو باید زندگی کرد و مسابقه تو زندگی کردن خوبی هاست و بعضی ها این مسابقه رو خیلی خوب تو شرکت میکنن. خرد نیک، اندیشه نیک با خودش گفتار نیک میاره. گفتار نیک کم کم تبدیل به یک کردار نیک میشه، کردار نیکی که یک فرهنگ اصیل ایرانی رو برای ما میسازه. بعضی ها نه تنها مثال خوبی و مهربانی هستند، مثال فرهنگ واقعی ایران زمین. به تنهایی انگار بار یک فرهنگی که داره به فراموشی سپرده میشه رو با خودشون حمل میکنن و به دوش میکشن. و چقدر قشنگه و چقدر زیباست در کنار این آدم ها زندگی کردن. من قبل از این که بخوام تسلیت بگم بابت از دست دادن پدر به این خانواده بسیار عزیز، شاید باید تبریک بگم که این همه سال این امکان رو داشتند و این افتخار رو داشتند که در کنار یک مرد بزرگ مهربانی رو تمرین بکنند، زیبایی زندگی رو درک بکنند، مفاهیم بلند معرفتی رو روبروی دیدگانشون داشته باشند. یک انسانی که 92 سال با برکت زندگی کرد، سرحال، سربلند، سالم، پر افتخار و با دلی مهربان. یک مرد ایرانی واقعی، کسی که تا همین اواخر قبل از این که حتی دفتر مایک عزیز باز بشه پدر اونجا حاضر بوده با کت و شلوار، کروات، آماده، شیک و به قول امروزی ها مجلسی. زندگی کردن مفهومش برای خیلی از ماها روشنه، ولی زندگی کردنش کار سختیه. خیلی وقتها باید پا روی خواسته هامون بذاریم تا اون الماس درونمون رو بتونیم جلا بدیم، براقش بکنیم و بیرون بیاریم و از وجود خاکی خودمون یک وجود درخشان و ارزشمند بسازیم. همه ما در وجود مثل همه ما از یک جنسی، ولی یک گوهر ارزنده وجود در همه ما مشترکه که هر کدوم از ما به میزانی که خردمون رو متعالی میکنیم اون گوهر رو بهش جلوه میدیم، خاکاشو میگیریم، برقش میندازیم و جلوش رو بهتر و بهترتر میکنیم. این میشه که بعضی ها میتونن با از خودگذشتگی پدری فداکار باشن، نه تنها برای بچه هاشون، بچه های عزیزی که این پدر بزرگ کرده، 7 فرزندی که همه نازنین و البته داغ 2 تا از این فرزندها رو هم این پدر دیده که یکیشون همینجا همسایش. فرزندان این پدر همه از جنس عشقند. از فرزند بزرگشون مایکل عزیز، سعید جان، انوش و محمدی که از این دیار خاک به دیار افلاک سفر کردند، حکیم جان، داوود جان و ماندانا جان، همه عزیزانی که راه پدر رو دارن در عاشقی دنبال میکنن و سخاوت پدر با رفتنش تمام نشده. از دریچه فرزندان صالحی که تربیت کرده و تونسته به اونها هم از خودگذشتگی رو یاد بده داره ادامه پیدا میکنه. یه قصه ای رو براتون بگم. یه پسری دنبال خدا میگشت، جوونی بود، براش خدا یه سوالی شده بود، کجا میشه خدا رو پیدا کرد، اصلا چه مسیری رو باید رفت تا به خدا رسید، اصلا از اینجا تا خدا چقدر راهه. خیلی با این سوال این ور اون ور میرفت. یه کوله باری برای خودش درست کرده بود و در به در دنبال خدا میگشت تا خدا رو پیدا بکنه. یه بار یکی دید که واقعا جدیه تو سوالش، واقعا داره در به در میگرده خدا رو پیدا کنه. گفت ببین اگر میخوای خدا رو پیدا بکنی، من آدرسش رو بلد نیستم، ولی بالای اون کوه یه کلبه‌ای هست و یه بزرگی توی اون کلبه زندگی میکنه، نفس حقی داره. اگر بالای اون کوه بری و از اون بزرگ بپرسی، او حتما راهنماییت میکنه. جوان گفت من سالها دارم میکردم، مسیرها طی کردم، این کوه که چیزی نیست، حتما میرم. و رفت. با هر سختی بود خودش رو به بالای کوه رسوند، در زد و اون مرد بزرگ در رو به روش باز کرد. خیر مقدم گفت، نشست. گفت چای برات بریزم؟ گفت برای چای و پذیرایی نیومدم، یه سوال دارم، برای یک سوال این همه راه اومدم، سوالم اگه جواب بدی بهترین پذیرایی رو از من کردی. گفت سوالت چیه؟ گفت یه سوال بیشتر ندارم، از اینجا تا خدا چقدر راه؟ پیرمرد یه لبخندی بهش زد، به صورت خسته جوون یه نگاه کرد و گفت از اینجا تا خدا یه قدم بیشتر راه نیست. جوون یه خودی بهش برخورد، فکر کرد که میخواد دست به سرش کنه، جوابشو نمیخواد درست بده، احساس میکنه که شاید مثلا لیاقت شنیدن یک جواب عمیق رو نداره. گفت من مسیرها طی کردم، یه کوه بالا اومدم، تو به من میگی یه قدم، نمیخوای جواب من رو بدی؟ گفت چرا؟ اتفاقا جوابت رو دادم و دقیق ترین جواب رو هم دادم. از اینجا تا خدا یک قدم بیشتر راه نیست، ولی چه قدمه؟ اون یک قدمی که پا روی نفست بذاری، قدم بعد در آغوش خدا. همه قصه همینه که ما چقدر میتونیم خودخواهی های خودمون رو، نفس خودمون رو، خواسته های قلبی خودمون رو زیر پا بذاریم تا در آغوش خدا جا بگیریم. بعضی ها به جوری در آغوش خدا در زندگیشون جا میگیرن که اصلا دیگه مرگ براشون معنی نداره، و بعضی ها که دلشون به عشق زنده نمیشه، اگرچه که زنده اند ولی معنی و حقیقت زندگی در وجودشون جاری و ساری نیست. حافظ میگه به امثال منی که هنوز نتونستم نفسم رو زیر پای خودم بذارم، نتونستم عاشقی رو تجربه کنم. حافظ به امثال من میدونین چی میگه؟ میگه هر آن کسی که در این حلقه نیست زنده به عشق، بر او نمرده به فتوای من نماز کن. همه شما مهربانانی که اینجا حضور دارید، به مهربانی و به عشق و برای همدلی و همدردی و بدرقه اینجا اومده، به غیر از من که خب برای کار اومدم. و همه شما مهربانان امروز یه تیکه از نفستون رو، همتون یه کاری داشتید. بالاخره داریم در یک شهری زندگی میکنیم پر هیاهو شلوغ، همه کار دارن، ولی همه شما مهربانانی که امروز اینجا هستید یه تیکه از خودخواهی هاتون رو زیر پاتون گذاشتید تا به مهربانی در این مجلس حضور پیدا کنید. و درود بر همه شما عزیزان. و چقدر زیباست، قشنگ نیست که وقتی میتونید داغی رو از دل بردارید، کوله بار اندوه یه عزیزی رو سبکتر بکنید. چقدر زیباست و شیرین مهربانی و چقدر خوبه که این مهربانی ادامه پیدا کنه. و سخن آخری که در کلام فارسی میخوام بگم، چون باید هم یه تیکه ای رو حداقل بخونم.
When we want to pray, prayer should come from our hearts, not just words that we say. It should be something that we believe in our hearts. So I will tell the whole things, the meaning in English, Farsi, and then I will get back to you.
قربانت مرسی. امروز بریم جاد خالی. We're gonna have a beach club. Thank you for being our father and our friend. Mercy. Thank you. Joe Mandana, thank you for taking care of him for the last 2 years. Yes, thank you. We all thanks. Thank you.
امشب چه زیباست ندیدی جانم، غم ناشکی باز چرا رفتی، چرا من بیقرارم به سر سودای آغوش تو داده بر باد. ای خدا ای فلک ای طبیعت، شام تاریک ما را سحر کن. ای خدا ای فلک ای طبیعت، شام تاریک ما را سحر کن. ای مادرم ایران زمین، آغاز تو پایان تو، در دشت من باران تو، در چشم من تابان تویی. ایران من آن مهر جاویدان تویی. ای در رگانم خون وطن، ای پرچمت ما را کفن، دور از تو بادا اهرمن. ایران من ای در رگانم خون وطن، ای پرچمت ما را کفن، دور از تو بادا اهرمن. ایران من
Hello everyone, thank you all for coming today. We are here to honor a very special person, our Baba Saei. No matter how much time we had to prepare for this, we never feel ready to say goodbye. So we thank you all for coming to show your love and support. And as per the Saei family request, today will be a celebration of life. Instead of a traditional day of mourning, we will be honoring the joy he brought to so many people. Today we have a few close loved ones who'd like to share a few words about Baba Saei. The first will be my sister Jasmine. Her speech will hopefully bring you all some laughter today. Jasmine, please make your way up here. Oh, and we are the granddaughters of Ali Saei, by the way. All right. Well, can everyone hear me? Okay. Okay.
It's because the speakers are in the tent.
This is also... Okay. Feel more comfortable like this. All right, well, last time I gave a speech in front of this group was at my sister's wedding, and I'm not sure if you guys remember it. I certainly do not. And it would not be a Persian service without a Rumi quote, so I'll start here. Goodbyes are only for those who love with their eyes, because for those who love with heart and soul, there is no such thing as separation. I've been thinking a lot about time and the impermanence of life. Time is our only finite resource. I turned 30 this year, and when you have these milestone birthdays, you always think back at previous chapters, previous decades, and you start to mark things and wonder what you're going to leave behind. I've watched my parents grow into grandparents in the last few years, and my grandparents into great-grandparents. And when I heard that my grandfather's health took a turn for the worse a week ago, and his days were limited, I started to think more about legacies, what we do with our time, and what we leave behind. The first thing that came to mind when I thought about Baba Saei, his legacy, is that he really defines what it means to be a true Saei through and through. I realized his legacy lives within me and the people around me and around you today. I see him in my dad, I see him in all of my cousins, uncontrollable laughter at very inopportune moments. So if I have a laughing fit during this speech, please know it's part of being a Saei and I really can't help it. I see him in my dad's wisdom and generosity as a father. When we have serious conversations where I'm vulnerable and hysterically crying, and somehow we always end up leaving the conversation in laughter. I see it when I hear that my dad is proud of this very speech that I'm giving right now, bragging about me to our family members before I've even given it and before I've even heard it. He's even heard it. I see it in my sister and my crazy OCD. I see him in my cousin. I see him in my cousin Negar's anxiety around peach fuzz. I see him in Negin's relentless tarof, and I see him in my Amu Talib's inability to stand still at early morning pacing around the house. I do not remember this, but apparently after the '94 earthquake at our Encino home, my aunts, uncles, and cousins were all sleeping outside on our deck, and my Baba Saei was pacing back and forth with a flashlight all night, making sure everyone was okay. I see him in my Amu Anish's heart of gold, always accepting people with open arms into his home. I see it through my Amma Saida's tears. 2 nights ago, she was over along with the rest of our family mourning. I was consoling her. I was holding her in my arms, wiping her tears, and through her hysterics, she pauses and looks up at me and says, "Let's take a selfie." I see it in my Abu Dhabi's egregious generosity. Everything he has, he would give to us insistently. If you asked him for something, the clothing off his back today, he would give it to you. I see him through my Amma Manzana's yips and yaps and very unfiltered commentary. I see it in Sebastian's looks, and I see it in Isabella's diligence. I don't know if you guys know this, but my grandpa was the first to my dad's office every single morning, and he does not work for them or with them. I see it in my cousin Asel. We grew up very differently. She grew up in Tehran, and I grew up in LA, and 30 years later, we traveled together, and we have the same sense of humor,
the same values, and we just really get each other. It's like this secret language of Saei. We have the same nuances and laugh at all the same things. I see it in our pride and joy, our perfect specimen on this earth, Ronan Bear. Shout out to Ronan, which is good to be here. I have never met a more talkative 2-year-old with a wider vocabulary or speaks more than him. My grandfather, if you knew him, could chat for 4 hours straight without pausing for a breath. It's overwhelming. I see it all around me. I see it in this room. My Baba Saei's spirit was contagious, light and laughable. He epitomized what it really means to be a Saei, which is warm, vibrant, silly, giggly, and full of love, charming in their very own way, quirky, effervescent, boisterous, and lighthearted. Saeis are, I guess I'm a Saei, we are stubborn as heck, compassionate, generous, we have no boundaries, we're loud, we want the best in life for everyone, although most Saeis came from nothing, and they can enjoy everything in life. Saeis are dramatic and they're larger than life. They are honest people of integrity and they're ambitious. In a lot of ways, we lack social cues and we have extreme OCD, but we are lovable and warm and unapologetically a breed of our own. To know a Saei is to be loved by them, and to be a Saei is to love. And if you knew my Baba Saei, you felt and knew his love. So I'd like to raise a glass, as we are celebrating, to celebrate the life and love, and of course laughter, because he was always laughing, of my grandfather. May his legacy live within and around us, and may we all continue to be a little more Saei, which is unapologetically yourself. Cheers. Cheers.
Next up, we have one of Baba Juni's roommates, Isabella Orlando, and also my little cousin.
Hi everyone, I'm Isabella, and I have to say it's hard to come after Jasmine's speech. That was spectacular, and I'm not as good of a public speaker, so I apologize in advance. So my name's Isabella. I'm one of Ali Saei, my Baba Juni's grandchildren. My grandpa lived with my family and me for the last 5.5 years. In the beginning, it was rough. He did not like it, I did not like it, and I know my mom did not like being asked where she was going when she was leaving the house at the age of 45 like she was a teenager again. He got the biggest bedroom in the house, causing my brother and me to be extremely jealous, and was eating up all of our eggs. My grandpa and I shared a wall. Our rooms were basically next door to each other. This man did not sleep. He was a night owl. No one would believe me when I said I could hear him walking around, banging his cane on the floor around 3 a.m. every night. Yet somehow he was still up at the crack of dawn, making himself the most buttery-filled, undercooked eggs you could possibly imagine, and some lavash bread with cheese and yogurt, which I hope you indulge in today. Oh, and he never forgot his sadaf tea, ginger candies, and dates with every single meal. Just a few hours later, after he took his morning nap or spent the hours on his phone laughing out loud, out he came again from his lair into the kitchen for lunch. It was either salad or El Pollo Loco, and of course, his ginger candies, tea, and his dates. Now dinner time. It was always a burger, either In-N-Out, McDonald's, or one that he made my dad grill at home. And I'm not gonna lie, I'm not the biggest fan of Persian food, and my family's more Americanized than most Iranians I know, so of course we indulge in what one might call fast food every once in a while. But my Baba Juni fell in love with it. Every evening he would call my mom on the dot for burgers from these various places. His go-to In-N-Out order was a double-double, no cheese, with raw and grilled onions. And of course, his tea, ginger candies, and dates. That was a typical day in the life of my grandpa if he was staying at home, which he only enjoyed doing if no one else was home. he would always be walking around the house, checking who else was home, looking in the garage, seeing whose cars were parked outside. He would use his cane to reach the windows at the very top of his wall to open up the curtains and check if my car was outside. If it wasn't, he would call my mom asking where I was. It took some getting used to having to explain to my grandpa and my mom where I was going out with and with who. If he wasn't home alone, he would immediately ask for an Uber to my uncle's office. Like Jasmine explained, he was the first one there. Somehow, in the span of him using my Uber account, my rating dropped from a 4.9 to a 4.1. So I do want to know what exactly he was doing in these Ubers, but nevertheless, he would tip extremely well, sometimes $20, and always in cash. And I mean, he would get there safely and come home around the same time every day. So going to my uncle's office was essentially his daily job, but he didn't get paid. But he loved just going. Fast forward a few years later, and we got COVID. Living with a 90-year-old during COVID, you would think they would be extremely scared to get the virus. Well, not my grandpa. He would say in Farsi, "I welcome Corona. If Corona wants to get me, it can." If that doesn't sum up the Saei personality, I don't know what does. He was a jokester for sure, even till the day he passed. He would tell my mom to allow my brother and me to have friends over because he got to live his teenage years and didn't want us to lose out on it just because he was living with us and we were scared of him getting COVID. He had no fear of anything. I mean, look at it. He moved his family over to the US, let his children go off on their own all the way across the globe just to give them a better life. If he was scared, he would never have done that. So props to him. My grandpa was courageous, strong, and had the most generous heart. I mean, tipping Uber drivers over $20, that's pretty generous now. He would give my brother and me monthly allowance, pay for many of our family dinners, and he would never, ever let my mom yell at us, which was the best part. He became the mediator in all of my mom and I's fights, which happened very often. He brought a sense of calmness into my house with two pubescent mood swing teenagers growing up. There is not a day that will go by that I won't think of him sitting in the kitchen, eating his In-N-Out burger, making his buttery eggs, or warming up his sadaf tea. My Baba Juni and the memories I have with him are forever in my heart. I've always had a special bond with him, even with the language barrier, given I was born the year his wife died. He was my caretaker for a long time when my parents would go out on their Saturday date nights and taught me many of the Farsi words I know today. Ab, meaning water, being the first word I mumbled out of my mouth, and Baba, because Grandpa was simply too hard for me to say. Baba Juni, I love you forever and always. May you rest in peace next to your son. Thank you.
Okay, that was beautiful. Thank you, Bella. Next up, we have Bella's little brother, Sebastian. Another roommate. So some more cute stories.
Alright, I'd like to start by pointing out that I only learned about this last night, so mine will not be as great. I'd want to start by wherever Isabella went, talking about...
Right here.
His eggs were perfectly cooked. You're just strange. And that was my room he moved into. But I later learned that he had offered to sleep on the floor just because I wanted my room back. So my speech is more about my experience living with him. Baba Juni was a great man. and an even greater grandfather. Even though there was a language barrier between us, he always tried his best to converse with me. He never accepted help, always offering it to others, except when he needed help with his phone. I will never forget the little things he did, like always coming to my important events, checking into my room to make sure I was okay, giving me money, not because it was a holiday, but because he wanted me to enjoy myself, or cooking me dinner when I was too little to do so myself. I wish I could have heard his stories about his past, but I didn't need to know those to understand how much he loved everybody around him. I hope he gets to watch his family grow and develop, and I pray he gets to do so alongside his son, Anush, who, similar to him, cared about others more than himself. Lastly, I hope he enjoys wherever life takes him, just as he made others enjoy their lives through his hard work, dedication, and love.
Thank you, Sebastian. I believe next up is my uncle, Uncle Joe. Is he here? Oh, there he is. He was Ali Saei's son-in-law, and he's been my uncle for 25 years. Long time. Please welcome Joseph Orlando.
Also another roommate.
Feel free to get up, wander around, ignore everything I have to say. Make my life a lot easier here. So my was too soft. All right. Well, let's see. My roommate, as you pointed out, my father-in-law, Ali, was a wonderful, wonderful man. He'll be missed greatly. His passing is a time to celebrate his life, as opposed to mourning his passing. He lived long and full into his 90s. As mentioned, he lived with us for 5.5 years, and myself, Mandana, our children, Sebastian and Isabella, and especially our dog Zoe, are better for it. More on Zoe in a moment. He was very structured and disciplined. His routine like clockwork. Every morning, he'd wake up. Good morning, Mr. Joe, as I was already usually awake at that point. Breakfast at 6:30 on the dot. Tea, bread, cheese. He'd put his dishes away, walk back to his room, and immediately get dressed to go into the office. During the week, it was Michael's office, and on the weekends, it was to go visit Anush. COVID really created some challenges for him. He was not able to go into the office as frequently. So his routine altered slightly. Still breakfast at 6:30. On the phone with Iran and other folks around the world and in California until about 12:30. Then it was time for lunch. Then back to the phone for a few more hours. And then it was dinner time. He was always involved. As soon as the garage door would open, as the kids mentioned, he was right up, running to see who was there, whether anyone had left, come in, wandering the house. Where did they go? Who's here? And he maintained this routine right up until the last few months of his life. Now, Zoe. While we all miss him, Zoe may miss him even more. During the pandemic, Zoe ate better than she had ever eaten before. He would make extra food with his lunches and dinners, and somehow there would always end up being a little extra food on the floor or in Zoe's bowl. And either way, she ate like a queen. For the last few months, Zoe spent most of her days sitting on the couch with him. And this has continued this week, even after his passing. as most of you know, he loved to talk. He was always involved in the conversation and wanted to be at the center of it. He insisted on being dropped off at gatherings an hour before we were ready to leave. So we'd have to drop him off, come back, get ready, and then go again. While there, he was always involved, right up until the time he was ready to leave. And then when he was ready to go, he was ready to go. And you could see it on his face. And the first sign that we were leaving, he was up and ready to go. That held true until the last moments of his life. He knew when he was ready to go, and once everyone had a chance to say goodbye, he left. Thank you.
Okay. So those are all the speeches. I can add a few to his daily routine since I was working in the office with him. He got a quesadilla from Takaya every single day with a side of plantain chips. And you could not forget the guacamole because otherwise he'd ask you to reorder the Postmates. And he read the newspapers all day long. He paced up and down the hallway of our office. Everyone who works at our office felt a sweet connection to him. They were all here today. It's really cute. And sometimes he got there before the doors were unlocked. We'd all arrive and be like, how long have you been standing here? Just standing by the door waiting for someone to unlock it. He was a very sweet, generous, and diligent man. He loved routine. I actually loved routine too, so maybe you get it from him. Anyway, so he's a great grandfather. We loved him dearly, and he lived a very full and happy life. He had a few losses, so the last decade or so have been tough, but he is a very resilient man. And I think next up is my dad, and he is the last speaker. He will be sharing a few words of gratitude. And please feel free to take your flowers as you exit. My mom wanted me to add that. Oh, flowers on the table, not the others. She just mumbled to me, so.
First of all, I would like to thank every one of you for being here tonight, or this afternoon. I consider myself, I'm from Caspian Sea, a city named Behshar. It was a village at the time when I lived there 44 years ago, but this is Caspian Sea. And this is Behshar. So I want to go back to Behshar. Since he's buried here, I want to celebrate in Behshar for him. So it's hard to talk about your own dad. So he was extremely generous. He did not have a lot. We didn't have a lot. We came from a city that had like 2,000 employees in the factory, and it was a mountain with a lot of American overseeing the Russia at the time. At the time we were growing up in Behshar. So my dad worked for his uncle for probably almost 40 years. They were calling him partner, but he was really working for his great uncle. They liked him as his son. They were 3 brothers, but he was like 4th one to them. He was basically had their trust his entire life. His son, his eldest son is here, Dr. Ghaffarian, could testify to that. When my dad left, when his great uncle passed away, he left that office. But they were generous enough to give him back the office. Said, this belongs to you, so you're one of us. When I was at 11th grade in high school, I had a brother, Mohammed. He passed away. He got hit with the car. So the first time I saw my dad crying. So I didn't know what kids means until I saw my dad's tear. So it wasn't easy. I was a teenager, so I didn't know much. But I saw him going to the graveside. I saw him crying by himself in his little office. It wasn't easy. I always remember those moments with my dad. He wasn't talking about it. He made sure his other kids are okay, but my mother never recovered. My mother never recovered after. She never became a mother again. She was in depression her whole life with the pills, heavy pills. So after that, moved here because Anush was here. I was in the middle of the college when revolution happened. And I could talk hours about immigration. Immigration is, we basically cut our own roots. I was 22 years old, tree. I cut my own roots and I brought that tree with me and planted in the country. I had no idea about the soil, the weather, and also you have to learn the culture and also the language, and also before you know it, you have a new friend. So most of my friends are from other cities, from other culture. So this is immigration. And you have to basically assimilate yourself with this new culture. And also try to stay above the water. Either sink or swim. Either you make it or you lose it. A lot of our family members, they left because it was so hard. It's not easy to live here. Let's be honest about it. And then, so my father and mom, a few years later, they find out we were doing well. They moved here as well. They became citizens. Then one day I got a call from my mom, or my dad. My mother passed away in the Iran airport on the way to here. So he passed away, she passed away at age 68. Another heartache for my dad. So I remember again, my dad came here. He grew his beard for the whole year. He wasn't changing his clothes for the whole year. He said, I lost my bag. My dad never remarried. He didn't talk to anyone. His comment was, your mom was the only one I loved, and I want to be with him for live with him for the rest of my life. So that wasn't easy. He was a young man, but my mother passed. A lot of you guys were at the funeral here, or memorial service here. That was okay. And then my brother Anush passed, really broke his back. For 8 years he was crying. On witness of those moments because he was in my office. Every time I saw this man is walking towards going out to the bathroom or coming back, I said, God, why you did this to him? He lost 2 sons, he lost his wife, he lost his own parents, he lost 3 other brothers. There were 6 brothers. So you know what? You don't know what God, if there is a God, that's even debatable. What God has for you. You just don't know. But one thing I know, my dad, without saying he was a religious man, he was a religious man. Every time he said to himself, God wants to take Anush from me, to take Muhammad from me, to take my wife from me. So those are the moments I have with my dad. We had our moments. I had my disagreement with him like any other kids would have with their parents. But overall, I learned a lot from him. Most was honesty. He always made sure, he always told me, when you have money from other people, make sure you pay them their interest, their principal back to the last day of their money. The time they need their money, you have to have it. So those are moments the father tells the son what to do. Those are not written in the university or in the books or in a text. Anyway, he had a good life. He saw us, he saw my grandson Ronan. That's the best part of his life. For AD, we went to his house. He gave us all AD. He wrote it. He had a beautiful handwriting, but this time his handwriting wasn't the same because he had a stroke in December. So his handwriting wasn't the same. So he gave us those envelopes to me, to Kathy, to Roxanne, to Jasmine, to Michelle, and then to Ronan, to Jordan. So that was beautiful. You know, today, yes, I'm really emotional because it was my father. You know, the last few days I try not to cry in front of my kids, my wife. I try to pretend I'm not hurt, but I am hurt. Let's be honest about it. He's a father. I don't care how old he was, but he was a father. He was father of few, and also extremely, as much as he didn't have money, He was the most generous. If I give him $1,000, 10 minutes later he didn't have it. 10 minutes later he didn't have it. If I want 10 bucks, he said, well, what money? I said, I'll just give you $1,000. So he was basically thinking of people they don't have. He was just passing it on. Yeah, and he always told me, make sure all your friends, all your family, they're doing well. But it's not good if you do well. Make sure everybody else is doing well. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Gratitude from my family to all of you guys for taking your Friday off and being with us. And thank you to making the whole day possible to celebrate my dad's life. He had a full life. He was 92 years old. My sisters are here. Mandana and Joe, thank you for taking care of him for the last 6 years. And everyone, all the doctors, they're not here today. So I like to, there's one here actually, Dr. Shadiar. Thank you for every time you took my sister's call for my dad. Dr. Reza Nazemi, Dr. Gabbai, Ramin Gabbai, Dr. Michelle Kia, Dr. Burgess, Dr. Vivian Shirvani Abawal, our angel, she's sitting here. She's the sister I don't have. Now she's not now, I always said she's my sister. She took every call we had and I had, and the last call was on Monday we had, and he wasn't doing well. He says, let's give him one more chance. So we sent the ambulance, we took him up to the hospital, and I'm so happy he passed in the hospital. So we did our best to save him. Anyway, he went in a sleep, deepest sleep. Again, thank you. Everyone, thank you. From far, from back east, from San Francisco, Tom, Steve, Mr. Salki, every one of you, thank you. Beautiful job, guys, thank you. Celebrating my dad's life in front of the ocean where he came from. So, thank you, Michelle June, taking care of my dad during his time. Thank you, you're an angel. So, my gratitude, our gratitude to you guys. I take off my hat. I don't have my wine with me, but if anybody give me glasses, I cheers to him. He didn't drink, but he didn't mind if we were drinking. He said, just don't drink too much. That's all. Thank you, thank you.